What is up, guys? Once again, it's Micah Lipsmeyer here, and this is our third and probably final video of this series that I'm doing with my good friend and one of our instructors here, Seth. Incredible guitar player. If you're just getting here, this is the third video of this series, and I highly encourage you to go back and watch video 1 and 2. In video 1, we were talking about becoming one of those players that can just jump into any situation, whether it's familiar or not, and sound like you've been playing in that situation for a long time, like you know exactly what's going on, whether or not you've heard the song, which is a pretty cool place to be as a guitar player, and we all want to be there. And in video 2, we talked a lot about some of the biggest struggles of lead guitar playing, and a little tip about that is a lot of it's right here in your rhythm hand and how you can work on that and clean it up, fix it, and things like that. Now in this video, we are going to be diving into some of Seth's big aha moments along his journey as a guitar player, and also some of his mistakes that he's made, and how you can also avoid those mistakes by being analytical or policing, watching yourself and seeing how you may be making a mistake or maybe should clean something up here or there, and how exactly you can do that. So I think you're going to find this lesson very informative, and I know I did. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive on in. In particular, are there any light bulb moments in your years of guitar playing that you would say made a big impact on your guitar playing that you could share with us?
Oh yeah, definitely. You'll have a number of like what I call the aha moments. One of the big ones for me was getting back to the theory thing, man. Just when I finally understood what people had been, not, you know what I'm saying, not understood as in I could say, but understood as now I can hear what people have been telling me theoretically, you know.
Yeah.
Now I'm really hearing where the parts of this major scale is, what needs to be applied, how this works over certain chords, right? Now I'm really hearing, like you say, when somebody just plays a chord progression, I don't even have to ask them. I can just dive in and start playing over it. You know what I mean? And that just comes back to a lot of that, learning that major scale and that basic music theory stuff. Because then it opened up my ears. It made the learning by ear a whole lot easier. You know what I mean? As opposed, because let's see, the short way I'm going to try and say this. Whenever you learn the major scale and some of the basic theory stuff, it closes down the amount of notes that you have to choose, right? So instead of before I was learning songs, trying to learn them by ear, I mean, you're just looking on the neck for a note that sounds good at first, right?
Right.
You're just looking for something that fits. Then you're looking for the next note that fits. So you're making a puzzle, basically, piece by piece, piece by piece. You can't work like that. You can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whenever you have that little bit of knowledge from understanding that major scale and some of that basic music theory, instead of it being the entire guitar neck, well, now you might only have 7 notes that you have to choose. It's going to be one of these 7 notes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or it's going to be one of these chords based off of what this is.
Yeah.
So it kind of just gives you that ability to do things on your own, I guess is really what it is. Once I could kind of start learning and learning, you know, stuff by ear, I really started progressing so much faster. That, and I'd also say, which, you know, unfortunately everybody can't, but when I went to music school, it didn't necessarily, the information wasn't paramount to what I was doing. But what these people really did was they sat me down for the first time and they were like, "You're really not that good." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was like, my guitar teacher would sit down in front of me and watch me play and say, you know, "No, you need to clean up your right hand. You know, you're sloppy on this. You're playing too many notes right here. This and that," you know, and really sitting down and start critiquing you.
Wow.
So, like, you have to be willing to take those critiques if you're going to progress. And you have to be willing to sit back and say, you know, I'm really not that good. You know, there's a lot of room to grow if you're going to actually grow. Because, you know, everybody wants to be Steve Vai, but Steve Vai is only Steve Vai.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody's going to be that, you know. So you kind of just want to be self-analytical, too.
Yeah.
Another embarrassing thing I'll say, too, is I've always practiced in front of a mirror. I would stand in front of a mirror, or I'd sit in front of a mirror, not to look at myself, but just to watch my own hands. You know what I mean? To make sure. I think it goes back a lot to me, you know, teaching myself, kind of being my first teacher. But just kind of trying to watch yourself, right? You're self-policing. You know, a lot of people sit down and practice and just, they'll play sloppily, but to them, like, oh, well, I got through it. You need that extra set of ears sometimes to hear you and judge you, in other words.
Yeah. And that's where, like you're saying, like your teachers in school, they would tell you that. And that's another thing that
I would never be that harsh to a student if they said, you know what I'm saying? It's definitely not that same. It was a different atmosphere for that. They were basically looking to break you down and rebuild you as a different player.
Yeah.
It's different in somebody that's just learning to play. I would never be that harsh. You know, I'd be more enabling to get them to where they want to go.
Yeah.
But nobody should be afraid of a little constructive criticism, you know, because we're all learning how to do this. I'm still learning how to do this. I'm still learning to play. You'll never learn it all.
Nope.
And that goes for the beginner and the expert at the same time. Everybody's on the same journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually kind of agreeing that sometimes it's good for somebody to be telling us, like, look, man, yeah, this is great or whatever, but you're struggling right here, and you don't even realize it.
Right.
You know, this is a big problem. You're playing too much, like you said. You're playing too much. It's too noisy. People do that all the time. We do it. I've done it. I probably still do it. You know, sometimes.
Oh, totally. I'm very guilty of it.
Yeah. As guitar players.
You know?
Yeah. Well, cool, man. This has been fantastic. Lot of good information. I really enjoyed this call. Let's go ahead and close it down, and hopefully we'll do this again coming up. But any closing thoughts?
Oh, I just say, you know, y'all get out there and keep on picking.
Yeah, don't stop. Keep on going. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Seth. I'm going to be talking to you again real soon. And, yeah, that's it. Take it easy.
Cool. Thank you, man.
Cool.
Have a good day.
One of the big mistakes that I made and many guitar players make today is using guitar tab. Now, I'm not saying that using guitar tab is a big mistake in itself, but learning to play guitar via guitar tab is a mistake. I made the mistake, and I get so many students also that are making the same mistake. And the reason why it's a mistake is this. You're learning to play your guitar by counting up numbers of frets and strings. And what that doesn't do is help you to visualize notes, chords, and scales, and theory, everything that's actually taking place on your guitar. So you don't necessarily see the shapes that you could be learning to visualize because you're looking in a reading kind of fashion, and guitar isn't played like that. Now, guitar tab is very useful for basically telling somebody exactly what needs to be done at what time. So there is a place for it, and it's a very, very good tool, and we should all know how to use it, but only using that or using it too much is a problem. It really, to me, it's only good for telling somebody exactly what to do at what time. Okay? But knowing exactly what to do at what time in this one tune is not really helping you to understand the full fretboard and how it's used in musical scenarios and what you're doing when you are playing those fret numbers, what's actually happening, and what is happening that's making it sound good. So that's a big thing. And one thing that Seth was saying was one of his biggest aha moments was learning music theory. And learning music theory was for me also one of these big aha moments, because it taught you that all those frets and fret numbers and strings and all this and that, there was actually some sense behind it. At first you just see frets and strings everywhere. and then you're trying to pick out which one is going to sound good and how is it going to work. But then when we start digging into and we realize, oh, there's such a thing as a scale, and it can be broken down into whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, these steps and half steps, and then these steps and half steps across the strings create patterns, and then out of these patterns we can pull chords out of and triads, and out of these chords and triads and scales we can make adjustments for different types of sounds. This is what theory does for you. And out of each of these notes we can create a chord that makes sense in this key. And this is going to help me if I'm writing a song. How am I going to pick which chords are going to make sense together? Or if I'm trying to learn a song by ear and I can pick out a few of the notes, I can decide, okay, which chords will work with these notes according to this key that I'm playing in. This is things that theory will do for you as a guitar player, and I can't emphasize enough how important theory is. Another thing that he talked about was he went to in college. He went to music, learning music in college enabled him to basically have a game plan for learning, a set curriculum that he had to learn and move with on time with a class and take tests and things like that. And he also had instructors that would sit down and watch him play and critique him and say, hey, this needs to be cleaned up. This doesn't look good. Oh, you're messing up here. You're playing too much. All these things that he may have not known that he wasn't as good as he could be until somebody told him that he could be better and showed him how that could be. So these were two things that he was saying that helped him a whole lot. And it's hard for most of us to get into music school. I did a little bit myself. I never actually finished just because they were making me do a lot of stuff I didn't want to do. But I did learn a lot, and it was really cool. Now, this is one thing that regular people can still get from having an instructor that will take the time to analyze where they are and where they're going, where they want to be as a player, and help them set a game plan, okay? So if you're wanting to get to a certain point and be like this certain player, a good instructor can look at what that player does, how they work and how they think, and say, okay, this is a skill set. This is a thing. This is a way he's utilizing his guitar. This is a way he's thinking in theory. This is his finger patterns, picking patterns. This is how he's using his pick. They can analyze these different things that are happening in the scenarios that this player creates, and they can help you say, okay, we're going to need to work on this, and here's a game plan to start to increase your skills in these areas. This is what an instructor can do for you, and set that game plan and help you walk along it and make sure that it happens for you. So this is very, very valuable. Another thing that an instructor can do is help you to see where you're having a hard time, okay? Things that you're struggling with, things that don't sound as good, or why they don't sound as good, why you're having a hard time. It's because you're doing it this way instead of that way. You're too tense, or you're not holding your pick in the best way that you could be in order for doing this specific thing. All these things are what instructors can do for you. And a few things that I do, and actually one thing that he mentioned, Seth mentioned, is he plays in front of a mirror. And if you'll notice, when you're watching a video on YouTube or on TV or whatever of a guitar player, you're watching what they're doing with their hands. And if you would sit down in front of a mirror, you could see, do your hands look like that? Are your movements looking like that? Are you making small motions like they are? Are you making very large motions? Can you shrink those motions? Playing in front of a mirror will help you to do that. And here's a big tip that I give to my students. This is one way that I help my personal students a lot for critiquing themselves, and I actually do this with them in lessons, is I record what they play. And sometimes I'll do that on video, but oftentimes I'll just do it on audio. And I'll play a track that, say they're learning this lead or this solo or this whatever, this lick, and I'll play this track and I'll say, okay, this is what that sounds like. And then I'll have recorded them playing it. And this happens a lot for kids also. Kids oftentimes think that they're doing something and they got it, but it really, to the outside ear, it doesn't sound good at all. It sounds terrible. But we can do this ourselves. We record what we play and listen to it and then compare it and say, does this actually sound like this? If it doesn't, why? Where is it not in line? Or at what point is a note not sounding good? At what point am I tripping? At what point is it something thumping, or is it it's out of beat, or I'm not quite making that bend all the way up to that note? Where am I losing it, basically? And you can hear that when you record yourself and listen to it. and then you compare it to whatever you're actually trying to do. So that's a big tip. And like I said, I do it with my students in lessons, and oftentimes I do that in lessons with my students so that I don't have to always be the one to tell them that what they're doing doesn't sound good. Because you don't want to beat a student down all the time, but you do want to help them to, a lot of times, helping them to decide where they want to fix something. Okay, that way it's their idea that this doesn't sound good, versus me just saying, "Oh, that wasn't very good." You know, I don't like teaching negatively if I can help it, but I found that that's actually a pretty good way for me to help my students. Without, especially with kids, without hurting their feelings, to help them to see places where they can improve. But all these are ways that you can actually do these at your house without an instructor. But I also want to invite you, if you need an instructor, if you would like an instructor to help you set a game plan and help you to find out what areas you can improve on that, and how to improve on those things, or where you might can bypass some wasted time doing things that aren't really helping you, bypassing just common mistakes that people might make and you might be making right now, bypassing that wasted time. We can help you do that right here. Myself and my instructors right here at 90 Day Guitar, we'd love to have the opportunity to help you. So I'm going to give you a link on this, right below this post, that you can click and join us for either private or small group sessions. I know a lot of times folks can't afford private lessons. They're kind of expensive, but they are very, very helpful. You don't have to take them all the time. You don't have to come every week. You don't have to do them every week. And we do them here online, and they're very effective. You can do them once a month. You can do them once every few months to make sure that you're just staying on track, that you're continually growing, and you're better this month than you were last month, okay? And just set out a few specific things that we can see that you're here and you're wanting to be here. These are some things that need to be in place for you to actually get there. We can do that for you right here. We can do that in private lessons. We can also do that in small groups, again, online, with just a small group of a few people that are all wanting to move forward in specific ways. And we can help people plot plans, answer your questions, private questions, in chats and in videos and things like that for you. We can do it all right here. So if that's something that you think you would benefit from, I want you to click the link below. I got a special offer for you here, and we'd love to have you join us. And once again, if you found this video helpful, we'd love it if you give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment below if you have any questions about what we talked about or anything else that you could use some help on in the future, or if you have any questions about lessons. Let us know in the comments below. Looking forward to hearing from you, and we're going to see you again real soon.